Hey, this is Corey Barnes.
And this is Lisa Caperton, and you're listening to Her Turn to Talk,
a podcast about women.
For women. Hey, Corey.
Hey, Lisa.
What up?
Nothing. Hanging with you.
I know. I like your pink hat today.
Thank you. It makes me look super tan.
It does.
But not orange, like I used to in high school. Self-tanner. So, do you have any concerns about artificial intelligence, like taking over the world or anything like that?
I mean, I know that it's like, okay, I know that people really do. I guess I don't yet. But sometimes I think, I don't know. Because like the way things like listen, like we have things in our house now. Like we have the Google Home and like different things. And it's like, I'll just talk about something. And then it's like, I open my computer and like, it's like, oh, you should look at this. Or you want to travel here. I'm like, how does it know that it's reading? So, I mean...
How about that Facebook facial recognition thing that's going on?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I mean, I feel like if I saw an AI, then yes, I'd be fucking terrified of it probably.
What if they like replaced like grocery store clerks?
I don't think I would like... Well, I would. Okay. I would like it because sometimes I feel like they can be too chatty and I don't want to be mean, but I don't want to chat. That's why I actually do. I only try to go to self-checkout because I do not want to have a conversation because small talk is just completely exhausting to me. But at the same time, it might just be weird. But if they could bag my groceries properly, I guess I wouldn't care. Because that's what I feel like is so annoying, especially at certain stores I go into. They just throw all your shit in the bag. Like they don't try to...
for guaranteed efficiency.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And everything would be perfect.
But I don't know that I'd want one like in my home.
Yeah.
While I'm sleeping.
Yeah. Travis and I were back in Massachusetts just a few weeks ago. And in the grocery stores now, they have this... it's a robot. It's actually moving around the store, has two like googly eyes on it, and it rolls around, and if there's a spill on the floor, it alerts the store so they can clean it up immediately. It's like some kind of efficiency.
It's like a Roomba kind of?
Similar, but it's like just roaming up and down, and you look at it, it's a little creepy. It's like it looks like something
started following you.
Yeah, right?
The store.
And you kind of people look at it while you're walking by. I was like, what the heck is this thing? And it says like, hi, my name is, it's got a name. And that I'm helping keep the store clean, but I wonder if there's a camera on there and they're watching people
some voyeur voyeur, that's what they are, right?
Yeah.
What they're probably upskirting with that.
Yeah. You never know. And there's ones in Vegas even. Have you seen these pictures of these robots on the strips in Vegas?
I haven't, but now I'm going to have to look at. But what do you mean, like sex robots?
No. We're not there just yet, but that would be a thing, wouldn't it? That could be a thing.
I think it is a thing. Like, I'm pretty sure, well, they have like...
Those dolls.
Yeah.
Those is something else.
And some of them talk.
I know.
I mean, I don't know about this personally, but I have heard.
Watched I don't know how I've ended up watching those shows, but I have.
Yeah, and so...
The weird fetish show. Not weird fetish, but the weird, I've got a weird life show.
To each their own.
Yeah.
I
got some cool AI stuff to talk about. I got a badass woman here, Ruzenia Baxi. She's a professor of electrical engineering and computer science at the University of California at Berkeley. And she helped create robots that could sense and respond to their environment. Very similar to that robot that I just mentioned that is doing that maintenance, whatever that's going on there in Massachusetts at the grocery stores. She now heads an innovative institute where researchers develop smart, low-power sensors that both compute and communicate. That's amazing. She believes that the sensors will be the next revolution in technology. They can monitor energy consumption in buildings, watch for forest fires, or keep tabs on people by, for example, calling 911 if the person with Alzheimer's disease wanders away from their home. And what comes across a robot?
I mean, yeah, I definitely see where they have their benefits.
It's cool.
To things like that.
Yeah.
But then you just worry about the people that hack into them and do creepy things with them.
This Czechoslovakian woman. This is what she's responsible for creating, these sensors. It's amazing. She's pretty neat. Where is she now? California. I already answered that question. But what? She was born. She's 86 years old.
What?
She's still doing this stuff.
She's still working, doing that stuff?
Yep. She's still doing. Oh my gosh. She's got awards. She's got a Benjamin Franklin Medal, an ACM Distinguished Service Award. She's got just listed a robotics and automation award. Can you imagine some cool 83-year-old lady like chilling with the robots?
Having those ones that the battle bots, that'd be awesome. And then she goes in there and kicks everybody.
Oh my gosh, the battle bots.
They're battle bots.
Oh, it's so cool, right? Science. And so that's my girl Ruzenia. And then
women in science are awesome.
Women in science are awesome.
And it's cool to be a woman in science.
It's very cool. It's very cool. And we got a guest today, Allison Poorman, Dr. Allison Poorman, who is a molecular biologist, and science is her life. She's a farmer. She is a molecular biologist. She's a lover of music and a lover of life, a world traveler even. So we're going to go ahead, get things kicked off with my dear friend Dr. Allison Poorman. And let's do this.
Let's do it.
Science.
Check our website out, herturntotalkpodcast.com. See our pictures, learn more about our badass woman, and rate, review, and subscribe.
All right. Well, welcome, Allison. You're looking great in the big white chair over there. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me as your guest.
We're glad you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
You're our first scientist on the show.
Our first scientist.
We're super excited.
Yep.
I'm Dr. Swain now.
Right. Dr. Swain.
Doctor.
Yes.
Tell us what kind of doctor are you? Like, what do you do?
I am a molecular biologist. So I work in a lab. I do, not just molecular biology, also biochemistry and other fun stuff, looking at all the molecules in the cell, especially like DNA and RNA.
Do you work with any like diseases?
Yeah, so I currently I'm doing research on breast cancer.
Oh, perfect for this month.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Corey's hat, her pink hat.
Very nice, yes.
So what kind of research are you doing around breast cancer? Like the cancerous cells?
Yeah, so the main thing I do in the lab is really grow breast cancer cells and extract different things from them. I'm working on a molecule that can help the cancer cells metastasize. Wow. So like when that happens, they spread to other parts of the body, and that's what really makes it that much harder to treat because it's moving around to, other parts of the body. So it can't just be removed with surgery. So I think really what we need is like drugs to treat when it does spread.
So like a drug that can like chase it almost in like
potentially, or like target those cells that like are able to spread. So what I work on is it's kind of funny. It's called hot air, but it's a long non-coding RNA. So it's like an RNA that gets made, but it doesn't get code for a protein, which is what a lot of messenger RNAs get made from the DNA, which get made into a protein. So this is a non-coding RNA, so it doesn't get made into a protein, but somehow it's able to regulate and turn off other genes that are important for helping the cell not being able to spread. So basically when those genes get turned off, it then is able to spread. So this molecule seems to get turned on to really high levels to enable the cancer to be able to spread. better.
Will you remind me, what is the difference between RNA and DNA? Is it even related?
So DNA, as you probably know, is like what is our like genetic code. They say like every cell in our body has like the same DNA sequence, and it's like our fingerprint basically.
And is that what carries like the color of our hair, the color of our skin? I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, the color of our skin, the color of our eyes.
So they say, DNA has all your genes, but each gene is actually then the DNA codes for a specific RNA to get made from it. So that's like one gene when one RNA gets made. And usually that RNA, or not usually, but oftentimes that RNA will code for a protein. So, DNA has 4 letters that will be in random kind of sequence, not random, obviously.
Yeah.
A specific sequence that will, and then RNA has codons. Every 3 letters codes for an amino acid. And that's what the protein is made out of, a string of amino acids.
Wow.
So there's also a lot of RNA in the cell that doesn't get made into a protein but does other things. For example, the machine that decodes RNA to make a protein is called the ribosome, and it's actually a complex of RNA and proteins that is needed to kind of do that whole process of reading the RNA to make the protein.
And you can see all of these variables that you're discussing through a microscope?
Not really through a microscope. There's a lot of really good technologies now that enable us to sequence things. So, for example, if I want to find what specific RNA molecules is this specific protein binding to, I can take an antibody that's directed to that specific protein and pull down all the RNA and then make what's called a sequencing library out of that. And then we can basically send it to the sequencing core. They have a big machine there that will tell me what all the RNA sequences are.
Is that thing that shakes do you know what I'm talking about?
But no, it doesn't shake. It's pretty much just like a standing machine that sits there. And how it works is they can flow different like fluorescently labeled nucleotides over your piece of RNA. So your piece of, we actually take the RNA and make it into DNA before we send it for sequencing. We have a lot of these cool proteins that can do different things to enable us to.
How long have you been working
stuff.
on this specifically?
This project I've been working on for about 2.5 years in my current position.
And are you on like a team?
I work in a lab, so I work under we call it a principal investigator. So he's kind of like the head of the lab. He's a faculty member at the University of Colorado Anschutz campus. So Aaron Johnson is my mentor, my PI, principal investigator. And so I work with a group in the lab. It's a pretty small, relatively small group. We have about 5 to 6 people in the lab. Couple other graduate students who are working to get their PhD, and then a lab manager and another postdoc in the lab. And then we're recruiting new students as well. So
is that the kind of research you've wanted to do all along, or did you kind of just find your way there?
That's a great question. I guess I kind of just found my way there by studying biology. I've definitely always been interested in like how life works and how like living things have come to be. So I think that's what kind of led me into biology.
Yeah.
And since I've gotten into biology, I've studied a few different things, definitely.
What's been your favorite?
Well, I really enjoy all the things I've studied. I think it's really fun to kind of investigate, like, how does this work? How is this happening in a cell? But I really did enjoy my graduate research on Candida. So that's like the pathogenic yeast. It's actually a commensal, what's called a commensal of like pretty much everyone, which means it just kind of lives on our skin or in our body and doesn't really cause any harm. Right. So it's the same yeast that causes like yeast infections and stuff. So in my graduate work, I actually was working on, so Candida albicans is the most common species that is on us and can infect us. But I started working on this other species, Candida tropicalis, that was closely related. Not much was known about it. Not much has been studied about it. It's also pathogenic, but kind of to a lesser extent, causes probably only 3 to 5% of like serious infections. So yeah, it's also called an opportunistic pathogen. So it can be a major issue when people are taking immunosuppressive drugs after an organ transplant, or if people have HIV, it can be like one of the hallmarks. And if people get a bloodstream infection, it has like a 50% mortality rate.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so it's pretty serious clinically if people do get infected with it. And the other hard part about treating a yeast is that they're also eukaryotes like we are, whereas bacteria are prokaryotes. So it's kind of easier to target because they have kind of different machinery in their cells, but the yeast kind of have similar machinery as us. So the drugs can often, the yeast can either develop resistance a lot, or it can also harm us. So it's kind of like a balance in the treatment. But yeah, so I was studying this species, Candida tropicalis. They were thought to be asexual, and I basically found that they had what's called a phenotypic switch. So they can switch between these two states. And it was kind of similar to a switch that was known about in Candida albicans called the white opaque switch. And in albicans, it was known to regulate their mating cycle. So in yeast, you don't have males and females like we do. You kind of have A and alpha cells, and they can actually mate and fuse with each other to make like an A alpha cell. And that A alpha cell can sometimes undergo meiosis, although in Candida, the process is a little bit different. But yeah, so I discovered this phenotypic switch and mating cycle in this new species of yeast that hadn't been discovered before. So that was really exciting.
I love just seeing you tell us that, because our listeners can't see you, but your like face is lighting up with a big smile.
Yeah, that was an exciting project to work on because like I felt like I was discovering something new. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Have you ever worked with anything that is pathogenic? Like, I'm obsessed with, I don't know, like diseases and like, I mean, Contagion and all those shows are my favorite to watch. Did you ever work with anything that you're like, oh my gosh, this is bad and it could really hurt me?
Well, I mean, we do in the lab, like one thing I do is generate like viruses. So I actually can use the viruses to inject like specific DNA into the breast cancer cells to make them either knock down a gene or overexpress a gene. So yeah, that was something I was doing in the lab. And there you do have to kind of use some extra precautions, like you want to wear extra coat and, you know, definitely wear gloves and make sure if anything gets on anything, you bleach it right away because the viruses can be pretty stable.
Yeah.
But it helps. We kind of use it as a tool in the lab to just get pieces of DNA. Like we use one cell type that's really easy to grow and really easy to transfect. So we basically just make these little kind of mini like membrane wrapped DNA pieces and transfect that into these cells that are also human cells. They're like human embryonic kidney cells. They just grow really fast and make a lot of protein really well. So it's like a tool that's commonly used. And so we inject pieces of DNA that make the virus components and then pieces of DNA that like we want to put in another cell. And so those pieces get packaged inside the virus, and we just take the media, the liquid from on top of those cells, and add it onto these other cells, and the DNA goes into them, and
it's amazing.
They express whatever we want them to.
That's amazing. Do you work with, so talking about viruses and stuff, do you also work with the drugs that, you know, are either going to help this, or do you test things out like that, or is that a different position that does that kind of thing?
That's a good question. I'm more, I would say, more on the basic side of things. So I'm more trying to like uncover the mechanisms of like why this one specific like non-coding RNA can make the breast cancer more metastasize more. So we really still need basic science to come up with the mechanisms that are driving the cancer, and then we can kind of use our knowledge of that to then develop different drugs.
To figure out how it works.
So RNA is like kind of an attractive molecule to target with drugs because people have kind of used like pieces of RNA that can block specific sequences because, they have a specific sequence. So it's kind of an attractive molecule to target, I guess.
Do you think that us as humans can change our DNA or RNA?
It's a good question. Well, I mean, in cancer, things definitely are changing. And so there's a lot of these philosophies that you can change your kind of epigenetics as well with like my philosophy. So yeah, I'm definitely like a spiritual scientist. So
Yeah.
I believe that our minds and our brains can control so much more than like we think we can. So I think there is starting to be research done about like how we can meditate and control our immune system and how meditation really changes our brains in general. So I definitely think that we like what we're exposed to, our environment affects us internally, and I think a lot of cool researchers have shown that.
I love hearing that you're a spiritual scientist, right?
Yeah.
What a like, whoa,
Well,
right?
a lot of people think spirituality and science kind of go together and really should drive each other.
I love it. No, I like thinking that way too. And it's interesting to hear your feedback on that. Like you were saying, like your environment, what you think about like positive affirmations, that kind of stuff. Because we've seen like Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay, I don't know if you're familiar with them, like cure themselves of cancer. I think with the help of some doctor stuff, but maybe not using chemotherapy and stuff. But this way of thinking, I don't know.
Absolutely.
And
I've known multiple people actually who have like cured themselves of cancer,
right?
Like,
Or gotten rid of
these
warts.
crazy. It's they say it's like these are anecdotal stories. So in science, we want to do research to figure out what's actually working. But, doing research on a lot of that stuff is kind of hard to do, especially, like the marijuana and cancer research. There's so many limitations to that because it's like a, Schedule 2 drug or like whatever. It's federally illegal.
Federal, yeah.
So
yeah.
it's very legal in our home. Shh. Hope the feds aren't listening to this. We're in Colorado.
We're in Colorado.
But there's a lot of barriers from doing research on that kind of stuff, which really stinks because of I think it could have a lot of potential beneficial effects on people.
Yeah.
And if the medical community was able to get easier access to stuff and do research like that, I think it would be beneficial in the long term.
That's cool. Have you always wanted to be a molecular biologist? Like, when you were growing up, you're like, I'm going to be a scientist. Like Bill Nye, the science guy, is my buddy or whatever. or did you aspire to be something else? How did it like?
Well, there's kind of a funny story. When I was growing up, we went to my parents' friend's house for like some of their kid's birthday party or something. And they had like a really big, nice house. I was like, and he was a doctor. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to marry a doctor. And my mom was like, come on, you can be a doctor.
Good for your mom.
Yes. And now you just got married. Congratulations.
Thank
and that's
you.
what we were talking about, Dr. Swain. Now, did you marry a doctor?
I did not marry a doctor. I married a horticulturalist.
Wow.
But he married a doctor.
That's
so.
right. That's right.
I'm the first doctor in both of our families.
But a horticulturalist, I mean, another scientist, right?
he is definitely very scientifically minded, and he has his master's degree.
Oh, he does.
It's in Parks and Rec management. So he actually works for the city of Denver golf courses, and he's been there like almost 3 years now, or about over 3 years maybe. And he's done really like amazing things. It was a new position when he started, so he's been able to kind of put in a lot of these sustainability initiatives, which is what he's really passionate about. So he's put beehives on 2 of the golf courses, converted a defunct rose garden into a vegetable patch, and they donate the vegetables to this restaurant that basically sells meals for what people can afford. And he's built a pumpkin patch in one of the courses, and they donate the pumpkins to a kids program. So I'm really proud of what he's done.
Did you guys meet through your share of loving like gardening and farming, because that is something else that you're passionate about? Is that right?
Yeah. So my path to my where I am now wasn't totally straight, as a lot of people's paths are not. I think the more I hear about people, it's everyone's like,
The windier, the better.
Yeah. So after my PhD, I got into like organic farming and permaculture, which is basically like a sustainable kind of way of living and just building societies, basically communities. So after my PhD, I actually went to a program in Israel for 6 months and studied permaculture, got a permaculture design certificate, lived on like this amazing ecological farm. We had like compost toilets and solar panels, solar heated showers. So that was definitely an amazing experience.
And you were just by yourself? You didn't know anyone?
Yeah, I didn't know
How did you find out about the program?
So there's this agency called Masa in Israel, and they basically have these scholarships for Jewish people to go and do these like 5-month-long programs. And I got a couple scholarships that covered most of the costs of the program. The program was called Eco Israel. And yeah, I got to
I remember
live
when
on
you
this
went.
amazing farm. Yeah,
I remember that. It was a big deal for you.
Oh, I was so excited. And I
Yeah.
had the best time ever.
Oh, it looked like so much fun. And then what
It was a
happened?
lot of fun. And then I was like, what should I do? Go back to science or stick with farming? Because I really did enjoy the aspects of like being outside and actually experiencing nature. You know, I've always kind of been attracted to like the natural world, and studying biology was definitely like related to that. But I just felt like I was kind of locked up in a lab and we were studying things in such controlled conditions. Like, does this even have any application to real life? You know, sometimes I was questioning that a lot. So I decided to stick with farming, and I found an internship on a farm up in northern Colorado, and I worked there for like a year and a half. And actually a few months after I moved out to Colorado, that's when John, my husband, and I met and at a fish concert. But we got to talking and realized we were like both super into like nature and, you know, sustainability and stuff. And
What kind of stuff were you
Love the
growing up
earth.
there in this farm?
so yeah, I was working on this place called Grant Farms.
I did
We
some
were-
CSA, right? CSA
Yes.
for
So
you.
community supported agriculture.
There you go.
And we had like over 1,000 CSA members.
Wow.
So it was a big distribution
Big farm.
operation. A pretty big farm, but we also got produce from other local farms as well. That was part of it. And yeah, we had trucks going out 5 days a week down to Denver, Colorado Springs, up to Wyoming. So shipping food out all over the
were you
state and in
Going out into the
Wyoming.
fields, planting the seeds, picking the corn.
I started as an intern, so you know we were like tilling the gardens, and I mean, thankfully there was this amazing man Ricardo who pretty much Ricardo, Felipe, and Ubaldo, these 3 guys ran the entire farm operation for the most part. So the tractors and seeds and everything, but we definitely helped plant plants in the field. We'd be out there and
Well-oiled machine.
oh yeah. I mean, that's another aspect that I actually really loved about farming was it's physical. And so, I never had to work out. I was like in great shape because I was like squatting, planting these.
Is it like meditative for you?
Definitely. I mean, working with plants is like, I just love like the patterns of plants, like different plants, and like one of my hobbies is finding like really weird shaped plants, unique ones like the tomatoes that have like a nose or the double eggplants that come out of one.
I love the glasses you look at life through. The perspective. It's like so refreshing. It makes me kind of almost.
Thank you.
I'm like, oh, what a the curiosity, right? There's so much curiosity that I hear when you speak about these things, and it's so neat. It makes me want to go out. I'm like, can we build a garden? Can we get a box and start doing? I want to go explore. I'm like, what am I doing? What I need to go like.
Growing your own food is also like so liberating. Like we buy so much less, produce in the summer months because of our huge garden. It's just like, it feels very liberating because you have the food right in your yard.
Right. And one, you know where it comes from, and it's not treated with a bunch of stuff. And,
exactly. Yeah.
And what you got to, so you have a backyard. And
yes.
And you have big one. You have a raised boxes, or it's totally it's so different out here in Colorado.
We have a few raised beds. And so, actually when we moved in, we had a big concrete slab across our backyard. That was an old driveway, but it was kind of decrepit, not very nice. Yeah. So we were gonna put some raised beds there, but then we like started turning the soil, and we're like, oh, let's just make this like a patch, rows of garden. So
and so, are you a vegetarian or?
No.
Okay. I was just wondering. Well, we definitely are in Boulder, so
we definitely do. Absolutely. We definitely do try to eat like sustainably raised meats, and definitely like tried not to like eat meat at every meal.
My husband and I, we found, especially being here in Colorado, it's easy to do, and so we have people that we go in on, and we get like a half a cow. And so we literally buy, and you can go to the ranch, you can see the cows, you can go to where they're processed. Like they'll give you a tour. It's your cow. It's not mixed up with any, you know what I mean? It's, where it comes from. And it'll last us for almost a year and a half at a time. And then we try to do the same thing. We'll get a half a pig. Like we just try to do that. And now that we've been doing that living here, I feel like I go into the grocery store and I'm just like, this is gross. Like it just feels gross to me. I don't know, because I'm like, I don't know where this came from. Like it could have been shipped over from, who knows where.
Yeah. So much nicer to really know your farmer, definitely, and have that connection.
That's right. Know your farmer. That was Grant Farm's sticker.
Yeah.
Sure. The logo was Know Your Farmer.
Corey was actually a CSA host of ours for a little while. So shares got delivered here. People could come and pick them up.
It was fun.
Awesome.
And if they didn't pick up, I got to keep their produce.
It was
I got a bunch
so
of peaches.
funny. I saw a woman with a Grant Farms bag the other day in the store. And she was like, oh, I used to be a host. Like,
yes.
What happened?
They gave us hundreds of them. I still have some in the closet.
Yeah.
We use them all the time. It's so funny. That was a great farm.
I was like, well, we're thinking about starting a backyard CSA. So we're thinking about starting a CSA out of our backyard.
That's
it's
awesome.
like a side.
Why not?
Side hobby. I know we grow so much.
That's awesome.
So what got you back into science? What kind of...
Good question. So after, working on the farm up in northern Colorado and spending a year commuting back and forth to John, because he lived in Boulder, I decided to move down to Boulder, and I found a job on a farm in Boulder. It was a really cool farm. They were definitely using like permaculture principles and, doing sustainable eggs and meat and I really enjoyed working there, but as many farm positions are, when the season rolls around, they're like, well, I guess this is your last week of working. My boss kind of sprung it on me. I was like, oh, okay.
Time to go.
Well, what am I going to do now? So, yeah, that's when I was kind of at a crossroads, was like, do I stick with farming? Do I go back to science? Because it really was kind of at the end of my limit because, if you don't use it, you kind of lose it in terms of like your PhD because research and stuff can progress so quickly. So yeah, actually, and John really encouraged me. He's like, you can farm anytime. Why not give research another try now when you can? So I did. And I'm really happy with the lab that I found out here. Like, I really enjoy working in it. There are always some difficulties when you're doing research. Like, your experiments aren't always going to work. And it definitely takes a lot of resilience, I would say.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason, why I was like, I'm done with this. But I'm happy that I'm back now.
Did you have any mishaps in the lab that you're allowed to talk about?
Yes, I did. My first month, I was like there. So we have like these waste beakers that we keep on our bench if we're like, pouring like supernatants out. It's like, stuff we don't need, like the liquid waste. And so I had my liquid waste thing. It was full of like ethanol and salts that, harmful, pretty harsh salts. And my pipette was hanging and it dropped into my liquid waste and it splashed off of my face.
Oh no, Allie. Oh my God. What did you do?
I was like, eye wash, go to the eye wash. So I had to like stay at the eye wash for 30 minutes.
Was it burning?
My friend. Yeah, I mean, it was ethanol, which is like alcohol and salts.
Oh my God, your face
in my
just melting
eyes.
off. Oh
No, I mean, I washed it out right away. And, my lab mate called like the EHS people, the environmental health and safety. And like it's so funny because we're right next to the hospital, but like, I swear, like outside, like 5 ambulances, like 3 cop cars, like they brought the whole brigade to the lab. Like these cops come up.
Were you embarrassed? Were you like, I'm fine?
Yeah, just a little bit.
I wonder if they were like, oh my gosh, a bomb's going to go off or something.
In the eye wash, it's like pure water that's getting sprayed in your eyes. And the eye washes in our lab was like really cold. Oh. So it's like my eyes were, puffy because I had been doing it for like 30 minutes. Oh. And so they're like, you should probably go to the hospital and get this checked out. Like,
Oh,
so I go to the hospital and they're like, oh, maybe you should do some more eye wash.
More eye wash.
Do you get in trouble when things like that happen? Do you get like reprimanded by your boss?
No, I didn't get in trouble. And no,
mistakes happen. You're still human.
My PI is amazing.
Yeah.
He's extremely understanding. And that's definitely one of the parts I enjoy about lab now. My old PI may not have been.
Have you found that... do you get treated or have you ever been treated along this path differently because you're a woman? Do you feel like?
That's a good question. I mean, in my graduate lab, there were definitely some ups and downs with the PI just in general. I think he expected a lot of his graduate students. He wanted us to work like 60 hours a week, which I don't think anyone should be doing.
What?
Yeah. I don't think anyone should work more than 30 hours a week. Like,
I agree.
It's insane.
I like the 10-hour work week.
It's like, how hours just to live?
Right? And then being in a lab for 60 hours. Gosh. Like you were saying, feeling trapped, right?
But it was very nice. I had myself and my friend Steve Jones joined the lab at the same time. So we pretty much had each other's back on a lot of things. But there were a couple instances, I would say, in the lab that I felt like were not so fair. I don't know if it was because I'm a woman, but sometimes I'm not aware of like gender discrimination. I feel like I'm like try to be naive and see the best in everyone.
No, I feel like I'm the same way sometimes. Yeah.
But like, I came up with this idea that when, these Candida tropicalis cells were mating, they were forming these films on this, like the plates. So I was like, we really need to look at this in biofilms because, biofilms can be a major problem like on medical devices and stuff. So it's a big interest of, the medical community. So I was like, we need to look at if these cells are mating, like, do they form biofilms? And so my friend in the lab was like the biofilm specialist. So they kind of gave that project to him. And then, as it progressed along, I realized they were like writing up a paper on it and I wasn't on the paper. And I was like, that was my idea. And just kind of
that's bullshit.
got stolen from me.
Yeah.
Is what it felt like to me. I can understand their perspectives that like they were working on it, but I felt like my observations were extremely foundational to that project. And
Right. Like maybe they wouldn't have thought about it at all.
But I was also hesitant to confront them about it. So I confronted probably later than I should have. And so at that point, they had already put the paper together and composed it and everything. So their decision was not to include me on the paper, even after I had asked them about it. So yeah, that kind of sucked.
And did you have an opportunity to write your own publication, your own
Yes,
authorships?
Yes, I've published papers like in my graduate work for sure. And I'm putting a paper together right now on my new research. So that's pretty exciting.
Is there a format to all that?
Yeah, it kind of depends what journal you submit to. So there are different journals that you can try and publish in. Some of them are kind of ranked higher than others. So there's like Nature, Science, Cell are like the top 3 journals. If you get a publication in them, you're considered like a rock star in kind of the scientific community. But there are a lot of other good journals as well.
And was your PI the same thing as your graduate advisor?
Yeah, so my graduate PI.
I see.
Yeah, so that's what we call it, the principal investigator of the lab. So
yes.
he was my advisor, my mentor.
Yeah. And is there anything from those times in your life that still influence you today?
You mean,
in
am
any
I
way?
traumatized from grad school?
Yeah, is there PTSD there from grad school?
I think everyone who goes through grad school has some sort of PTSD.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a friend who was a postdoc in another lab next door to mine, and she couldn't do it.
Yeah.
She was like, I can't, she was having panic attacks every time she was going to meet with her advisor. And her advisor was like the most laid back guy I know. So it was definitely ingrained in her because her graduate advisor, she had a very bad experience with. And that's also, part of the reason why I left for the lab is because of some of those negative experiences and like the competitiveness.
I was
of
just going to
science.
ask if it was like, it sounds very competitive.
It's very competitive
because everybody
if
wants to
you're-
be the rock star of science, like you said.
Right. And I mean, if you stay on kind of like the academic path, it's, the process is apply for grants, get money to do your research, and do more research, get it published in good papers so you can apply for more grants. So it's all a very competitive process, and, competition to get published in a good journal, competition to get a good grant. So it's definitely, I would say, a pretty stressful environment because it's so uncertain. And especially at the stage I'm at, which is a postdoc, you're kind of in between, like, stages.
Yeah.
So your future is just like totally uncertain. There's only so many faculty positions, professorships that are out there. And so a lot of people have to do other things like work for a pharmaceutical company, which isn't the worst thing in the world because they probably get paid 2 to 3 times as much.
Right.
What do you do to combat that stress? You talk about, you believe that meditation and things like that can help you. Do you imply that yourself?
Yes, I wish I'm gonna try and start meditating more. Actually, yesterday was Yom Kippur, so
Right,
I'm also I'm like Jewish. So yeah, my mom was Jewish, my dad was Christian, and So I wasn't really raised with like any religion. I was just like raised celebrating the holidays, and I didn't really know any of the meaning behind them.
Yeah.
But I would say my mom was like a more spiritual kind of person. So I think I did grow up with like spiritual values, but anyway, yeah, now I kind of do try to celebrate the holidays. And I think also I've exposed John. So John's from like an Episcopalian family. So his dad was very religious, but I think he kind of turned away from religion. But I've been dragging him to some Jewish stuff, and he likes it. But yeah, I feel like being connected in that way can help me. Like,
So you find it's not necessarily like meditation that's helping you, but more of your faith.
I think though that goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
I feel like like Yom Kippur is supposed to be kind of a very meditative holiday. It's like repenting kind of
Okay, so
for the last year.
I don't know what Yom Kippur is, so tell me. Yeah.
So there's Rosh Hashanah, which is like the head of the year.
I know they're the two holiest days. I do know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Rosh Hashanah is like the new year, and then you have 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And like during those 10 days, you're kind of supposed to reflect and like seek forgiveness from people you may have wronged over the year, and kind of just like reflect on what you might not have done the best or you can improve on. And so I feel like that's a pretty meditative process. And like and on Yom Kippur you fast, so you don't eat anything for like 25 hours from sunset to sunset. And you also like pray like all day. So prayer and reflection, depending on how
Did your husband
religious
do
you
that
are.
with you yesterday?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. And, actually it was the first year that I've fasted. Yesterday was.
Yeah.
So,
Did you eat everything today?
No, I have a cold right now.
Oh,
so
that's all
that's why I have such a sexy voice.
It's just very sultry. That's the voice you needed to be an emo DJ, right?
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I had an emo radio show in college. It was great.
I think it's also, did you have like the whole ensemble going on, like the hair and everything?
Like, was I goth?
How
Was I like
emo
goth?
were you? Like
Well, I was dating a guy in fraternity, and all the fraternity members thought I was goth. But I just wore a lot of heavy black eyeliner, okay?
Judgmental.
I was wearing like my black band t-shirts and my, black eyeliner, and they were like, is she goth? I was like, don't they know what emo is?
Yeah. Tear.
was your show on like at night? Like when was your slot?
Yeah, it was like, I think it was like 6 to 8.
Were you playing music and talking, or just like
introducing the songs and stuff? My mom would always be like, Allie, can you play less screaming music? And then one time I was like, this PSA goes out to my mom. I put on a PSA.
It's so funny to think about yourself or anybody, because like we're all three sitting here, and I think about how I was as a teenager and young adult, and then people who see me now are like, that couldn't have been how you were, and I could not see you. I'm looking at you now, and I'm like, you couldn't have been. But it's just so funny to like.
I don't wear eyeliner anymore.
Change.
I don't wear makeup now. Ever since my farming days,
Right, I was gonna
more
be like,
natural route.
Did you ever think you're like playing emo music? You're like, I'm gonna go live in Israel and farm.
And music's always been a big part of your life, right? I mean, even to now, we were talking about what do you do to combat maybe stress or stuff? Do you going to shows, going to music? That dancing, is that
definitely
that's
dancing? Oh, I love dancing. Dance every day.
Yeah. And you and I even met. We were originally internet friends. That's how we met on a music sharing website. What do you call that?
TTFM.
Yeah.
Turntable FM.
Lives on forever and ever.
No, it doesn't live on anymore. They got taken down.
Only in our memories.
Commercial issues, commercial rights.
Yeah.
Copyright licenses and stuff. Yeah.
But you met John at a fish show. Have you been to any other shows recently?
Well, we had an awesome band at our wedding. I feel like our wedding was a show.
It was. Oh my God.
And then we just went to our friend's wedding in St. Louis, and they had like a bluegrass band, which is
more
really fun.
celebration and dancing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I've definitely been loved like many types of music throughout my life.
Yeah.
Very, very eclectic music tastes. Like when I met John, that was like the first Fish show I went to.
Oh,
but
no way.
now I like love Fish. And we go to, it's called Fish Dick's. It's at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. So we go to Fish Dick's every year now. It's like our...
Didn't it get canceled or
Ritual?
something? I saw it
Yeah,
on the news
so,
because of the plague.
Yeah, the prairie
Prairie dogs.
dogs had some plague. So they shut down the camping. So we actually live super close to
Oh, so it didn't affect you.
So no,
like,
it didn't affect us. And we had friends camping in our
I was
backyard.
gonna say, did you just
That we're
take
gonna
on
camp.
people? Because that seems like the type of community that you're
We had,
like, just come on.
We had
sleep
like
on
three
my
or four
yard.
people, 3 or 4 tents set up in our backyard.
Awesome. You're part of some women in science programs. Is that right? Can you-
Another method of staying sane while working in the
tell us
lab.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I started my postdoc, I don't know, I guess I was definitely looking for like other things to do outside of the lab because, you know, sometimes things in the lab don't work and you need like something else to shift your attention to. But I was attracted to this women in STEM group. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, which are fields that are traditionally male dominated. And so, you know, supporting women in those fields can be really important. So I found this group that was putting on a symposium and they were looking for people to give these TED-like talks. And so I volunteered to like kind of tell my story about why I left science and then also why I came back and what I wanted to kind of change about science. So some of the competitiveness and that sexism, like we kind of talked about. So yeah, I got involved in this Women in STEM group at the CU Anschutz campus, and I became the postdoctoral liaison, so kind of bridging the Women in STEM group to the postdoc community. And I was in that position for a year, and then I became the president of the group. And so I got to like run and organize the entire group.
Wow.
So is it like are you going out and speaking to people like maybe high schoolers or people trying to figure out where their paths want to go, or are you already talking to people that are kind of already in science?
I think a little bit of both for sure. We try to kind of connect like the women in STEM on our campus through different activities. We have like lunch discussions on different topics that might affect
like,
women.
Hey, we're like-minded women. Let's get together and
so
talk. Okay.
one thing that I was pretty involved in the following years after I gave my TED talk at their symposium is organizing the annual symposium. So we kind of bring outside women speakers in to give talks about inspirational topics or different topics that address women. I think my first year we did it. The theme of the symposium was inclusion and diversity and intersectionality and kind of how those all come together. And so we had a bunch of women from this group, 500 women scientists, come give a talk about how they kind of started their movement. And so this is a group that was started out of CU Boulder, women that had gone to graduate school together there. And so in response to kind of Trump's election and his kind of negative science talking, negative women talking, they really wanted to start this group to kind of build support for science in relation to influencing policy, and also for inclusion in science of women and everyone, really.
Right.
Because science really needs diverse perspectives to solve such complex issues.
Right. I would think the more minds you have, the better, and the more different,
the more
thinking
perspectives.
minds. Yeah.
Definitely.
Neat.
And so those are they're two different programs.
So 500 women scientists. So now they have pods all over the country and internationally. So the pods of these groups are basically just local groups that kind of get together once a month and do
kind of
different
like a
initiatives.
meetup, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. So I was a co-coordinator of the 500 Women Scientists Denver pod. And so we organized different events. We had a trivia night, a science trivia night that we had as a fundraiser for us. We had a movie night that was it was the movie about Miriam Diamond. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's an amazing movie. Miriam Diamond.
We'll
was
look it up and we'll
like
put
the
it
first
on the
neuroscientist
website for you.
So she also is one of the women she's a pioneering woman scientist in neuroscience, and she's also one of the women who discovered that your environment can influence your brain. So
My
she
love
put
affair
rats,
with the brain.
Yeah, my love affair with the
Love
brain.
it. Okay.
Exactly.
We'll put that on our webpage.
Yeah.
For
So
you.
she is incredible, inspirational. Yeah.
So
Great
do you
movie.
have? So again, I see you lighting up. So do you have some women role models that you look up to?
That's a great question. So yeah, one thing I've started through my the Women in STEM group is this mentorship program. And so the goal of this program is to kind of pair up trainees on our campus with like either faculty or kind of more senior members of the campus to just get advice on whatever they may need. So I'm running this program, and I'm also a participant in the program. So I think it's really cool to have like a woman mentor that I'm inspired by, and she's also a very more young faculty member. And so her advice has just been really insightful in terms of like, how to be professional in specific situations. She's in exercise science, so she's like, yeah, I come in wearing like sweatpants and exercise clothes all the time. So it's like, and I come from like an academic background. Like I got my PhD from Brown, so it was a very undergraduate campus, very casual. So I'm just used to being extremely casual. But then I realized I had to work with a doctor. And it was actually a really cool experience. I got to like see his breast cancer patients and stuff. But one day I showed up wearing like a hoodie and tie-dye shirt. So I was like, I don't think I can bring you to see patients wearing that. So is a very like, the different environments that you could be in, especially at a medical school, is I'm kind of, just learning about like things like that. And also like, what do I need for the next step? What does my application package look like? So just having her as a mentor has been really helpful. And like we have kind of planned monthly meetings, and it's like, yeah,
That's
I can
awesome.
ask her anything. Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of like setting up this program to like give this to other women on our campus.
That's a big deal. You're influencing so many other women.
That's my
You're
goal.
bringing these women together,
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I agree. I think that's kind of like been something we've talked to people and we've been learning. It's just like, yeah, you can go so much farther and do so much more in your life when you ask for help and you have someone there to walk through it with you. And it's like what you're saying, you have a mentor and then you can be a mentor to someone else. And like, it just keep giving back. If every person was to just do that, it would be, just, I think.
Yeah, the support is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Definitely.
And passing it on, right? Passing it forward, that whole idea, right? It's not just about whoever's behind you at Starbucks. You buy them a coffee. I mean, it's in real life, this is amazing.
Like life experiences.
And learning and science.
Yeah, and I really also love teaching and mentoring. I got a chance to teach a class this past semester at the CU Denver downtown campus. It was actually a molecular biology lab for master's students. They got to do CRISPR gene editing in the lab. It's a hot topic. So
Yes.
it was
Remind me what
exciting.
the CRISPR, I know.
So CRISPR is a protein that was discovered in bacteria, and it's kind of considered the bacteria like immune system. And so it helps the bacteria like incorporate these different virus DNA pieces so that they can fight the virus. But what it does is it basically uses a guide sequence that can target it to any DNA sequence to cut the DNA. So it's a useful tool in the lab to like edit DNA.
I feel like I want to say, I think it might be a Radiolab podcast episode that's about the CRISPR. I'm pretty sure it's Radiolab who did it.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I love that podcast. I'm so obsessed with so many podcasts. And I think that's one of their like top 10 podcasts is about the CRISPR.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing because, you know, it enables you to like do so much with DNA and like investigate like, what if I do this to the DNA? What will happen? So it's a very useful tool in the lab.
Wow.
So it's CRISPR.
Yeah.
It's like a
Is that
acronym.
new? Is it a new finding?
It's fairly new. I think it was like 2010 around.
Was there anything before that could cut that DNA like that?
Yes, there were these TALEN proteins, but it was a little bit more complex because you'd have to actually engineer the protein to target a specific sequence. So I think it cost more time and money and all that stuff. So CRISPR is nice because RNA is really easy to make versus like a protein that's targeting a specific sequence. It's actually the RNA that's targeting the DNA sequence. So it's a bit easier to make and know what you're targeting because it's directly complementary to the DNA.
Is this the same gene editing technology that like the designer baby stuff? Is that the connected? Like,
Yes.
Oh, very interesting. That's something else.
Very
huh?
That's a whole
controversial.
nother
Very
wormhole to go
controversial.
down.
yeah.
I mean, there's questions of whether that actually happened, you know, with
Yeah.
the Chinese scientist editing the,
Yeah. Can you think you can even do that?
I don't know. You definitely could. Definitely could. But hopefully
Interesting.
he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
not
Did that
that you
topic
could,
come-
but that you should type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that come up in your speech here that you were teaching these graduate students, or was it just the basics of it?
I'm sure it came up. A lot of things came up.
Yeah. How long was the speech? Or I'm sorry,
class?
The class.
It was, so it was like one semester. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
It was a
3
whole
months.
semester.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
amazing.
So do
And
you,
Nice work.
I just really like, you know, working with students and supporting them.
Yeah.
And
You're a teacher, huh?
like, I think at least like half the people in the class have asked me for recommendations for different things that they're going to next.
Yeah.
So I just am really happy that like when I can support people in their goals and stuff.
So are you going to continue to be doing teaching also in addition to research?
That's what I ultimately hope to do, I think.
Because we
Work-
had somebody else on here who she was an accounting professor, and that's she was saying like part of the job is teaching, part of the job is research, and then I think the third of the job is service. It's like
Yes. Yeah. So that's definitely, I think, what my ultimate goal would be is to like teach and do research. And obviously, I also love service and, you know, supporting women in STEM and just supporting diversity and inclusion in general and those types of initiatives.
I love it. I love it. I feel like I don't know. You're so smart and you're just so like I enjoy sitting across from you. Like you just
so
have such
fun.
a great smile and so happy.
And there's so
Love
much
it.
I learned about you. There's so much I thought I knew, and there's so much I didn't know. You know, and a lot of things that I was like, oh my gosh, this is Allison's story. Like, wow, you know,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
It's cool. You know, it's really interesting, and I love hearing about it. You know, you just unless you get to talk to someone, you don't get to hear the the inside outs and where it started from and where it is now. You know, what got you here, and that's why this whole podcast. So we can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having
This
me.
is an honor.
I hope that my story can help other people. You know, my path hasn't been easy and it's been filled with tons of questions and stress.
Well, I think it's a good thing of you saying like, no, you can take a break, you can step back,
Absolutely.
and you can still come back and continue on that path if that's what you want to do, and if you
Right.
don't want to do that, that's okay too. And I love just hearing about you and that you have so many other interests, and it's you're not just and like none of us are this
Yeah.
one-dimensional person, and so I think it's so important to like be able to open up and listen to someone and see all the many sides that we all have.
Definitely.
Oh, you're fantastic.
Yes, thank you
And
so
we'll,
much.
drop some
Thank you
links.
so much.
Oh my gosh, we'll put some links on the website here with the CU AMC Women in STEM.
Definitely,
so if
yes.
more
Yeah.
people who are
Yeah.
listening
Absolutely.
want to tune in. Also, the 500 Women Scientists Denver pod. We'll put that link on there, and then we're also going to put the link to that movie. I'm really
Yeah.
interested in the love
I
affair of the
highly
brain.
recommend that
All
movie.
right, now we
Great
might have
movie.
to have a watch party,
Yeah.
a women's watch party.
recommend it.
Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much. We
Yeah,
hope you
thank
feel
you,
better,
Allison.
and maybe
Thank
we'll have you
you.
back soon.
Oh, I'd love to.
Thank you. If you have an interesting story, something funny, something sad, something you want the world to know, please email us. We want you to share your experiences with us. We'll take these, we'll collect them, we'll do some episodes sometimes where we'll read them. So if you want to be anonymous, please just let us know. We won't read your name. If you want your name read, then we will. But send us those stories, comments, to info@herturntotalkpodcast.com. And we also ask, if you like what you're hearing, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you.